Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to AFD's Masterclass series, and welcome to How to Configure Salesforce session. So we will be spreading, we'll spread this session to these topics to around 3 sessions. It's really meant to give you confidence to do some configurations in Salesforce, how to make adjustments in whatever you need from the declarative customization standpoint. All right, so we have divided it to four modules. We're going to be doing an introduction of Salesforce, a very quick one. How to get a developer org. Next is the basic configuration and basic setup. Then probably in our next section, we'll do data quality, and then the next one for automation. I'll be going through the material and the demo for most part of our session today. And then at the end of the session, we will have a question and answer portion. You could post your questions and I will try to answer them and address them before we end our session today. Right, for the introduction, let me just get out of this presentation. So we'll go through, So we'll go through products, how to log in, basic navigation of Salesforce, what are apps, tabs, what is in the home screen, objects, fields, records, and list views. I will also give you an overview of what you can do and modify in Salesforce. Explain what does it mean between clicks and code, and what chatter is. So Salesforce is I think all of you know that this is a cloud-based product. The primary products is your sales, your service or after sales, and your marketing. Then there's also a bunch of other products like for Commerce Cloud, your Heroku, platform engagement, MuleSoft, and communities. So you can all find them in the site. At least for this session, we will be focusing on how to maximize Sales Cloud and how to configure it. This is the login screen for Salesforce. So you enter your username and password, and you get to enter Salesforce. So once you're inside Salesforce, it's pretty much what you see is what you get. If you have logged on in your developer org, which is what this one is, what I'm using, you would be in the setup page. So here are these 9 dots on the upper left portion. It will allow you to look at the different apps. So this is your app launcher. The different apps in an app in Salesforce is primarily a collection of the different objects, which would help you do your work. Okay? So you have your service, marketing, community, chatter. You also have your consoles, which is sales and service. So these are some of the default apps that are already present in Salesforce. If you want to modify it, you can also create your own app. Maybe you could create it for a different team. So what it does is, so it will show you a bunch of tabs. So these are tabs. So if you click this down arrow, it shows you the tabs. This will take you to the home screen. Home screen usually gives you an overview of your dashboards. You have your assistant here. You have your events. So this could be synced with your Salesforce calendar or your email calendar. You can also put tasks for yourselves. If you scroll down, you get to see the recent records that you've seen. If you are working on key deals, it will also be shown here. So you could, the thing with Salesforce, you can open multiple tabs. So say if you're looking at leads, you could look at and you open a particular record. So this is a list view. So it allows you to see a list of the different records that you have. So here, usually it defaults to recently viewed. You could go for all open leads. So what it gives you, it helps you do your work by looking at having a view of. So you could customize these list views and have them make life easier for you. So this is especially, so here you could easily see all the open leads. Once you open it, goes to another tab. I think it would be better if, so you could also look at your opportunities. In opportunities, there are different views of the tabs. So you could have them in a list like this. You could also have a Kanban view. So what it does is it gives you all your opportunities that are based on stages. So you have some in your prospecting stage, you have some that are already in qualifications. So this automatically gives you a view. So you can easily open records by clicking on the name of the opportunity, name of the record, takes you to a detail page. So these are the details of the opportunities. Here on your right, these are called related lists. So these are lists of records that are attached or that are related to your main record, or for this instance, it's the opportunity. So here you have, if you're tracking, so here you automatically track the stage history. So any changes on the stages would be tracked here, when it was done, what are the changes that have been made. And here you also get to see the child records. So if you have quotes attached to particular opportunities, those would be listed here. Here on the left, it allows you to uh, do some quick actions on the record. Say you have notes, you want to clone these opportunities, submit for approval, delete or edit, and also change the owner. So these quick actions can also be created using configuration. Okay. This is the Chatter view. Chatter is Salesforce's social media or internal social media. It allows you to collaborate easier with your team. So if you are uh, doing team selling or just having your sales guys or your sales team help each other out, so this is a great way to do it. Works a lot like Facebook. You could have your own timeline, but you can also follow records. You can share updates. You can ask help. You can mention people. I think Chatter. So this is a sample user, so you could mention them. Once you uh, mention them, they would get a notification, and you would be able to follow records. So this is especially helpful if you're doing team selling. Okay, so that's quick overview of Sales Cloud. For opportunities, this is also the sales path. I would also teach you on how to configure this one. Okay, so if you're doing configuration in Salesforce, so it's a way of customizing your Salesforce environment to without writing any code. So Salesforce has always tried, or they always push to let business users uh, to allow business users to customize Salesforce on their own with like no code or minimal code. So that's the whole concept of clicks over code. So a lot of their features can be customized. My suggestion is, if you want to customize or you want to play around, you could either get a developer org or request a sandbox where you can play around. So that makes it safe, your configuration safe. You can try and see what would be the impact of what you would be doing. You can try and explore on how to do things without breaking your production environment as well. So that's the whole concept of click versus code. There's also, let me go and show you Chatter just before we. So this is, if you go to Chatter, so you have your timeline over here. You could post an update, you could do polls, you could do questions. Like I said earlier, here there are recommendations of other users that you want to follow. So works a lot like Facebook. If you follow them, then you get to see their updates. Okay. All right. Let's proceed to uh, basic configuration and setup. Okay, so if you want to do configuration in Salesforce, you just have to click the app launcher and then go to, oh, sorry, you have to click the gear button and click on setup. Okay, once you click on setup, it will open to another tab, which would show you the home page for the setup. So this is where all the configuration takes place. So it is done in this screen. Okay, so at the setup, so you have the home page of the setup and then the object manager. So object manager is all about maintaining your objects in Salesforce. So quick, so objects uh, are your basic information that where you save your uh, your records. Okay. Before we proceed with the object, let me show some quick configuration that you could do. One is if you are an uh, administrator of your Salesforce org, you could create users. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to set up users in Salesforce. Here, this is a quick find box. If you're doing so, this is a tree list. So you can easily search for what you need to, where you need to go. This makes it a whole lot quicker. You don't have to memorize the whole list. So if you need to, you just need to type it in and then it will come up in the menu. Here, you could have users. So if here is a list of users. So if you need a list of users, you can easily go here and just click on new user. You enter all the details. Say test user, uh, write their email. Then the username would automatically be generated. You select the user license. So since this is a limited org, I'll create a chatter user first. Okay. And then we select a profile. So those are so those fields marked in red are required. The rest are optional. So you could create and save that user, and that already makes that user available in Salesforce and active. So this means so this is part of the configuration if you are setting up users in Salesforce. Next, what we need to understand next is the whole security module of Salesforce, or at least the basic security module. Okay. Oh, sorry, I forgot about this one. If you want to sign up for a developer org, you want to try this out, you can just go to developer.salesforce.com/sign up. Okay, and then you fill up the details and then click sign me up. Try to, here I placed name afdtraining.com. You know that Salesforce users usernames have a certain format, so you can do it with this one. After you create your developer org, you wait for the email in your inbox, click on verify account, nominate password, and security question, and you would be able to already log into your Salesforce org, the Salesforce developer. All right. So for the security module, it is very important that you try to you know where how the security works. So I guess the best way to one of the better way for me, at least for me, to understand the security module is by looking at it at layers. So you have your organization level security. Uh, if you are to look at it, you could envision this as, say, the building wherein you have to go into. So if you in the organization, if you don't have the login, so if you don't have your username and password, you cannot enter the building. So if you want to look at a particular record or a particular file inside that building, if you cannot log in or you cannot go into the building, you won't have access. So this drills down to more specific levels of security. So in the organization, you have your trusted IP ranges, login IP ranges, login hours, meaning you could configure uh, from where your users are logging in from. You could specify their IP range. You could also specify their what time do you usually do you are you able to log in the system. This is usually used for contact centers. So if you have Service Cloud and then you have contact centers wherein the agents can only log in from their desktop in the office. So that this is where you set that up. Okay, next is your access to objects. So if you're already in the building and you need to access maybe a certain floor, you could go in. So we could also limit that. This is done through profiles and permission sets. I will go through this later once as we go with our demo. So here, basically you set up your CRED or your create, read, edit, or delete capabilities. Uh, so this allows you to access certain records for certain objects. So different profiles are attached to users. So one user only has one profile. And then permission sets are sets of access that are uh, added to your base profile. So say for profiles, maybe you have your regular sales users, but there are certain users with that needs special access or additional access that is not generic for all sales users. So that is where you use your permission sets. One key thing that we need to uh, watch out or we need to remember about permission sets is permission sets only add access to profiles. It does not uh, remove or reduce profiles. Say for their profiles, they have access to account contacts and opportunities. Uh, and then we want to give them access to leads as well. We could add that in a permission set. But if their profile has access to accounts, contacts, and opportunities, and we want to remove their access from opportunities, we cannot do that for permission set. Uh, Again, permission set is used to add, not subtract or deduct access from our users. So as we continue with our analysis, you're already in the floor and you want to access a particular room. Uh, Maybe you need a fingerprint access to access a particular room. This is where we will do our records. This is the part of the security model wherein we access the records. So records access is given uh, via different ways. There's also several layers for record access. One is the OWD or the organization-wide default. We'll go deeper there later. You could also grant access to records via role hierarchy. I will show this later also through sharing rules, manual sharing, and teams. Then eventually, if you have access, if say you have already have access to the room, the file is there, but uh, you could also include field level security. Usually for sensitive information, this is used for that. One is usually credit card number, or credit card data, or their middle name, or their social security number. So if it's sensitive information, sometimes it is not shown to everyone, to the whole team. It's just shown to certain levels of users. Okay, so after explaining this security module, let me show you how to configure this in Salesforce. Okay, so from the setup, oh, sorry. From the setup, let me show you how we can show our IP ranges. Okay. All right. So from the menu, you could go to network access. So this will show you the trusted IP ranges. Say you want to set up your IP range wherein all of your users can log in from. You want to restrict that. So you just have to go to network access, click on new, type in the start IP address, something like this, maybe to 54, something like that. Put a description, and you just have to save it. So this range, this means anyone who is not logging in from this IP range would not be allowed to log in. This also works for mobile. So if they're using their mobile phone and this is not part of the trusted IP range, they would not be able to log in. Okay, so that's how the trusted IP range works. So it's this takes effect for the whole org. Now, if you want only specific users uh, would be able to log in a different range. Say, I guess the best case, one of the cases where maybe admins can log in from anywhere, and maybe the sales team or the contact center team could only log in from uh, from certain IP ranges. So if we want to do it, one way to do it is to do it via the profiles. So again, each user is required to have a profile. Okay. So these are the different default profiles that we have. The profiles can also be created, can be easily configured. It's actually quite similar to the way we created the user. Okay. So say we want to, like our chatter users, this is one of the this is the profile of the user that we created a while ago. If we want to log in, so this is the setup for the chatter free profile. Here you can see the administrative permissions and other details. But if you want to set up uh, the login hours and login IP ranges, you just have to scroll down and you will find it here. Say for here, you could have your own IP range for this particular profile only. So the difference between login IP ranges and the trusted IP ranges is its effect. So this will just work for the particular for users with this particular profile, and the trusted IP range is for the whole org, or for everyone using the system. Here, you also have your login hours. So especially for like contact centers, you could enter the start time and end time, wherein these are the only time. This restricts them that if it's 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., that's the only time that they could log in. Okay, not gonna save that. Here also you could set password policies for your profile. So there's also you could set this one up for the whole org, for everyone. You could also set this up per profile. Okay. So maybe your sales team and then your marketing team or your contact center team could have different password policies, but most of the implementation they are the same. Okay, you could set password expiry, uh, how many passwords you can reuse. So here we're remembering the last three passwords, meaning if they set the password, if they create a new password, can it be one of the last three passwords? Password length, uh, complexity of the password, default setting is alphanumeric characters, uh, password question requirement. Here, it cannot contain a password. You can also have maximum of invalid attempts. And then after they reach the invalid attempts, they would be locked out. You could also set uh, how many minutes. And then for secret answer for your password resets, and then password lifetime, meaning we require at least 24 hours before they could change their password. And then do not, this means when you create the user, the password links wherein you verify your account would not expire immediately. Okay. Uh, so these are also configuration items, but there are, it's pretty, so it's already the configuration choices is already pretty extensive. But here, like how many passwords remembered, how lockout. So if you choose forever, it means they would have to be reset by the admin. Uh, Usually, this is sufficient when we are implementing Salesforce with clients. But if there are other uh, password policies that are not covered by this, that's usually a development customization already. So as a platform, Salesforce is actually pretty extensive, or most of the time it's already sufficient enough. But if it needs to be further customized, uh, we need development work already. Okay, so that's for the login. Next, so this is the profile. So what are permission sets? So if you want to access permission sets, you can find it here in uh, the menu. So permission sets are additional access that we can give to to our users. Here, there are uh, default permission sets uh, that are created by Salesforce. Uh, I don't advise to use them because you cannot modify them. So what if you want to add, say, a particular permission set, you could use them as a base and then just clone it. Okay, so so you add the labels, API name, description, then you create that, and that's wherein you can modify. Okay. Here, you could add certain permissions. It gives you it brings you to this setup for permission sets. These are permission set details, and these are the permissions that you can give. You can give them permissions to apps. Say, you want to add permission to view the campaign influence, so you can edit them here. Uh, you could add permissions to uh, access certain objects. Also, you could maybe the general permission set would only show you a read access. So you could add a permission to particular profile or a particular user, and then they could have access to edit and maybe create a record for that object. Okay, so that's giving access. So if you want to add, there's more. There's more than one way to do it. So you could add an assignment from the permission set. You could add it to a particular user, say for this user. So this means that okay, so sorry. So there's an error. So we can only assign it to a user. Maybe we can, yeah. So there's a license restriction. You cannot add those assignments to a chatter free license. So here is okay. So we could assign the permission set to a particular user. You can also assign it to a particular profile. Say, for example, well, by default, system administrator has uh, all of the permissions. But if you want to add the permission set, it's not here. Sorry. So you could also add them to groups. So if you add the user to a particular group, you can also uh, add the permission set there. Next is about getting access to records. For if you want to see the record access, so records are your actual records under your object. Say if the object is an account, the record is could be company ABC or customer one, customer two. If you want to restrict, so if you're looking at the security model and you want to set up the uh, record access, or you just have to go to again, you can go through this uh, quick search, go to sharing settings, and here you would be able to configure the organization-wide default and your sharing rules. Okay, so organization-wide default is the default sharing setting of your records. Here you can set a particular object, for example, a lead. Uh, you could set it as private. You could set it as public read write, public read only. So what it does is this is the base sharing setting of your organization, of your objects. So say we are talking about a lead. Okay. So if you do not want to share, so if you want to keep your leads private, meaning you don't want your uh, sales agents sharing leads with each other, you could set this as private. Okay. But if you allow everyone in your company to be able to share records, share leads, or share accounts, you can set them to public read write, meaning upon creation of the lead, it is anyone in the organization, anyone who has access in Salesforce would be able to see that record. So that's what public read write means. And then here, if it's controlled by parent, meaning it is controlled there, the sharing setting of this record is based on the sharing setting of their parent record. So here, I believe for contact and for opportunity for contacts, this is the child of the account. So contacts are child records of account. So if the account is public read write, uh, then the contact would be public read write as well. Okay. So if you go and open the sharing settings or the organization, you could set it up for different objects. So there's also the internal access and external access, meaning external access is the default sharing setting for users that are not really part of your company. So if you go on and make this available to communities, you could also set it here. Okay. Uh, these are the access rights that are that can be assigned to particular objects. So you have your public read only, public read write transfer. Transfer meaning you can change the owner of the record. Okay. If your company is very strict with sharing of information, I suggest that you keep this private. Okay. And then if you need additional access for particular people, that is where uh, your sharing rules would apply. So again, here in the sharing setting setup, if you want to check out, uh, if you want to add sharing, so if we focus on the lead object, which is private, this means only system administrators and the record owner would be able to uh, see the lead record. You could, if you want to say share a particular, create a sharing rule uh, for leads, you could scroll down and do it in sharing rules. So one particular sharing, or usually what happens is when sales teams are could be divided or could be set up by state. So if we're looking at Australia, say maybe all Victoria state leads. So you just need to enter the label name, the sharing rule name. Uh, you could either select your rule type, whether it's based on the record owner or based on a particular criteria. Say if, so for this one, we'll select criteria. And then it will allow you to create criteria where you can share your leads. Okay, so let's say if a lead created is from the state of Victoria, we will share it to Victoria sales team. So we have a public group. I created it beforehand, called Vic Sales. And then for level of access, we will allow them to read and write these leads. So we click on save. It will give you a warning, which means it will recalculate. So what Salesforce will do is once you save this, it's gonna uh, go through all the records and share them to the group. So if you are to read this, so this is a sharing rule that we created. So for every lead that is created, wherein the state or province is equals to Vic, then it would be shared to the group of Victoria sales. Okay. So here, if you want to see who are part of the group, you can easily click on that URL and it will take you to the public groups. Okay. Here, I only included myself because this is a developer org. We have limited, but here you would be able to see all users. So you could have your entire Victoria sales team in there. If you want to create different groups, you can easily go here to public groups, click new, say New South Wales sales team. And then you can include who will be the members. So you could create members via the roles, via user. You could add particular users. So here, maybe as a sample, we add 2 users. And here are delegated groups as well. So if you click on save, this means we have created the New South Wales sales group, and you could already add, you could create sharing settings for them as well. Okay. Next is via role hierarchy. Okay, so if you go to the roles and you set up the role hierarchy, this is so this will allow so anyone under so anyone so the record owner and anyone above the record owner would also have visibility on the record by default. That's unless we do not allow to we set it to not grant access using hierarchies. So here you could set up your role hierarchy here, meaning anyone above the, the record owner's role would also have visibility on the records. So this is another way of setting. So if your org-wide default is not public, you could grant access using role hierarchies. By default, it shows you the company name over here, and then the first one is usually the CEO, and then we could have other roles under the CEO, like the CFO, COO, your VPs. You can also have up to, I think, you could have several levels. So this means if the role of the user of the one who created the record is a customer support international, then the SVP for customer services support would have access, and the CEO will also have access. Okay, so this is great for team selling and also for managers to have views. Okay, so the access to records is also important, especially for management, because in Salesforce, so we will be tackling reports later in our future session. But if you do not have access to the record, then it will also not show up in the report. Okay? So it is important that you set up your roles correctly. Most of the time, this is your org structure. When we are doing implementation, you ask for the org structure of the client and you just implement it here. But it's not necessarily that way for all. So sometimes you don't have to set up the entire organization. You just need the sales team. I think what's more important to remember when you are setting up roles is who's going to need access, who, depending on this hierarchy, who's going to need visibility on the records as well. Okay. And then there's also manual sharing. Manual sharing is you go to the record and you share it to a particular person. Okay. This is for very special cases. So if the sharing is not covered by your org-wide default or your role hierarchy, you can go to manual sharing. Another way to share records is, especially if you're doing team selling, you could add them as part of your teams. Okay, sorry. Right, so from the setup, in order to set this up, you just go to account teams. Okay. So if you have, for particular accounts, you have a team that is working on that account, so you can easily add them. This means once you add your team members to a particular account, they would already have visibility on it. In order to activate that from account teams, you can click on enable account teams, put a check mark on this one, and then click save. Then you will be asked if you want to add this in the page layout. So if you remember in that detail page wherein you have three columns, the detail page in the middle and then the related list. So this would add the account teams in those page layouts. Page layouts we will discuss a little bit more later, but this will allow you to add that account teams in your page layout. So after that, you just need to refresh this one. So from the sales console, you can go to accounts. Okay, and if you open an account record, you will get to see. So this is the detail page in the middle. And then we will have the account team here at the right side of the panel. So what this means is you could add team members. So you could then you would be able to set what would be their access for this account. Say we do Emvin, then we set them as the account manager for the role. This is also read write access for accounts, for cases related to the accounts, and for the opportunity related to the account. Okay. So you could have several team members there. So if you have a team of 3 to 4, you could add them here. This means they would have access to this record immediately. So anyone from the team could be working on the same account. Here, there's also opportunity teams and case teams, meaning same concept. If there are certain opportunities wherein there would be multiple team members working on that opportunity, you could easily add them so that you could give them access to the records as well. Okay, so that's how you share records using Teams. And then finally, for records wherein you want for sensitive information, for example, this one for annual revenue. You don't want everyone to see the annual revenue of a particular account. So in order to do that, you need to go to to the object, and then say account. From account, this gives you the details of the object. So account, you select the object, you go to fields and relationships. Here you get to see the standard fields in Salesforce. The custom fields will also be listed here as well. So what is the annual revenue? So if you want to make this private, so annual revenue, this will give you the details of the field. And then you could click on set field level security. And this will show you a list of the user profiles and what would be their access. Say for a marketing user, you don't want them to have visibility. You can simply untick this one. If it's a read-only user, then we could click on the read-only checkbox. So this means any user with this profile would only have read-only access on this record or in this field. Okay, so if you click on save, it will take effect. So this means this annual revenue, if you are a read-only user, you will not be able to edit it. If you are a marketing user, you will not be able to see it. Okay, so that is how to set the field level security. So that works for every field, whether it's standard or it's custom. Okay, next, let's discuss what are standard and custom objects. So standard objects are objects that comes with Salesforce. So over the years, these are the these are the standard objects that are already that is built into Salesforce. So you have before if you're looking at again, if it's usually each object would have a tab, and those objects could be part of the app. So if you're looking at the sales console, here these each of these tab has an object beneath it. So an object, if you're looking at it from a table perspective, so your object is one table, and then each of the columns in your table, those are fields in Salesforce, and each of the records in Salesforce are your rows, okay, table rows. So each of the tabs are backed up by a table. So it allows you to save your records in Salesforce. So there are objects that are already, so a lot, all these fields, these are the standard fields that comes with Salesforce. You could also create your custom objects or your custom fields. Say if you are a uh, insurance company, you want to create, you want to save details of your insurance policies, you can create uh, an insurance object in Salesforce and then create fields. So how to do that? You go to the object manager part in your setup, go to the right of the screen, and then create custom object. Okay. So for custom objects, say if you are an insurance company, let's call this one as policy. And then, so you enter the detail, enter the plural label. You could enter the description, details on insurance policy. Then you could type record names, meaning what would be the label format. So you could put, it could be a text or policy, or you could put an auto number. Auto number means it's going to increment for every record that is created. So it's going to be unique. Say for this, we will, instead of policy name, we will use policy number. And then display format, meaning this would be the format uh, of your policy number. Say IP dash, and then maybe 5 digits. Okay. And here we would have the start number. So if it's 1, so that means the first record that we can create for policy number is IP-00001. Here, you could also set for this object, you could allow to create reports from this activities. You could insert, you could create activities, meaning your activities could either be an appointment or you could log a call. I can show this later. If you would track field history, And then if you allow this to be seen in chatter groups, okay. Then for classification, if we could allow sharing, this is for to manually share bulk API access and streaming API access. This means if we are integrating with an external system, we will allow this object to also be accessible. Okay. If you're usually when you're creating an object and it's a sandbox environment or developer org, you can easily say that this is deployed. Means you can already use the object. If you click on this, it will allow you to do the general search. The Salesforce search. It will allow you. This means it will also be indexed. That comes out when you're searching for records. Here, you could have the notes and attachments, and then when you're creating an object, you can also create a tab. Okay. So click on save. So if you select the tab, it will allow you to create a tab. This means it's something that can be shown here. Okay. Okay, we can just keep this to the default. Oh, sorry. Tab style. So we can select an icon. Here it will show you what profiles can see this tab, this object. So we'll just default everyone, and then what apps would be would this tab be shown? I think we'll just include it in the sales and sales console. Okay. All right. Here this is already the details of the custom object. So it looks a lot like the standard object. You could create if you want. So these are the basic details. If you want to create a field, you just go here to fields and relationships. These are standard fields that are created by Salesforce. This goes with every object, every custom object. Then you can add, we have the policy number. Here we could add new fields. So you could have, these are your data types. For the new custom field, could be an auto number formula, say lookup field, or a date, an email. For this one, we can have a text field and say maybe policy owner. Could specify, so each data type, we can go through that later, but here there are certain fields for each data type. So for text fields, it allows you to set the length, description, help text, whether it's required or whether it should be unique. If you tag this an external ID, means it will be accessible via API or an external system if we are to integrate. And here we can also enter a default value. I'm just going to leave those blank for now. It also allows you to select which profiles would have access to the field. This is default. And where, what layout would display the field. So we'll just save it here. So after a few clicks, you already created the field. We have a minute remaining. I'll continue in our next session. I will try to wrap up so that we finish on time. Okay, so usually, so I have a question from Jamima. So usually for chatter groups, it's more of for collaboration. So when you could have certain groups, say if you are working on particular uh, particular opportunity, say for this one, you could have chatter. So if you have this is a chatter group. Sorry. Okay. So if you have a chatter group, you can easily, so it works like your Facebook groups. So if you want to send a message, instead of tagging each individual, you could just tag a particular chatter group, and then say if it's Victoria Sales or New South Wales Sales chatter group. If you want to send a message to everyone, you can simply tag the group, and everyone would get a notification. So it's really more for collaboration. We will end our session here. Thank you for your time. I'll pick it up from where we left off on our session next week.